All right, Cristiano, take the wheel.
All right. So yes, as Megan said, we're going to be doing an augment for Caliban. The first thing I want to do is hit you guys with a couple of disclaimers, mostly just to cover my own behind. But this is just going to be a prototype. It's not going to make it into the final game in this exact state, and it's just really being done quick and dirty for the stream, so you might see me do some pretty abominable things. The next one is that this is my first time doing kind of live programming on stream, so if it's chaotic, that's par for the course. All right, so let's just get into it. First, we know it's going to be for Caliban's 1, so let's just try it out on enemies to kind of like get a refresher of what it does. For those of you who are Caliban enjoyers, this is nothing new. You spin around kind of Beyblade style, just hit everything, and you apply Tau status, do Tau damage to enemies. You also heal, regain some shields and energy for the enemies you hit. Cool, so I'm going to go right into the upgrade screen. I've taken the liberty of setting up the augment card already because this process is kind of boring. But it is. Nobody wants to see that. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick aside about like how this process happens. Like augments don't just appear. So usually what happens is that there'll be like a week or so of design discussions and brainstorming for like what kind of augments would be fun to do for a given update. And then the cool ideas, we talk to Pablo about them and see if he kind of likes where they're going. And if he does, we'll try it out. We'll start the prototyping and fun-finding portion of the process. So here we have one, and the spec we have, you'll see, is very vague. It says, now groups enemies you hit. Ortholist summons will launch coordinated strikes on grouped enemies. Okay, sure. Let's start cooking it up.
Easy.
The very first thing I usually do is I'll go into the script editor.
Steve is excited.
I'm getting excited now.
Is it in Lua too?
Yep.
This is your people's scripting.
Yes, it is actually.
It literally is true,
I
which
know.
is such a strange
Okay,
thing.
so the very first thing I'm going to cover is kind of what I have open here. On the left, I have Site, which is our script editor. And then here I have like the resource browser where you can kind of browse all the types in the game and all the different like data resources that we have. And then I have the property window, which lets you edit data on those types. So I'm going to open Sentient Whirlwind in this just for a little later. The Sentient Whirlwind ability is Caliban's 1. But yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. So for now, I just want to talk a bit about what Lua even is and what I'm doing over here. So every ability in Warframe has a Lua script that kind of governs how it functions. We have kind of a number of different things that these scripts can do, but yeah, like generally speaking, you have the script for the ability, and then you will do some extra logic when you have the augment equipped. So what I'm going to first do is, just to not complicate you guys with all this stuff, I'm going to paste in the spec so that we can talk about it and break it down a bit. So like I said before, it groups the enemies you hit, and the summons launch coordinated strikes on the enemies. So this very first part I absolutely love because it means I can do my favorite thing in the whole world, which is copy my own homework, because Inaros does the exact same thing. So
Reinvent the wheel,
Copy
people.
my own homework.
I'm going to show you guys real quick, if you don't play Inaros, what he does. But it literally is this. So he already spins around, and then he groups enemies at the very end. So we're just kind of loading the text real quick, but there it is. So yeah, spin at the very end of it, and dump the enemies down. He does this extra thing where they stay ragdolled for a little while. I don't think we need to do that. We kind of want to keep that unique to Inaros. So we're just going to do Caliban's logic exactly like that, but without the ragdoll extension at the end. All right, so the next part of this, I think, is a little bit more complicated. It says Ortholist summons will launch coordinated strikes on the grouped enemies. That can mean a number of things, but kind of like as it is, the Ortholists on Caliban, they'll kind of be a little lost if you start like taking enemies all the way around the level. They just kind of will shoot at them, but you'll be like dragging them around. They'll miss. So you'll kind of get in your own way. Something to avoid this, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to try teleporting the Ortholists around that clump of grouped enemies when we're done. So like you can imagine, I group the enemies up, and then in a little triangle around them, I put the Ortholist deployed so that they can just lay into the enemies. And to that same effect, I'm going to want to force deploy them. The Caliban enjoyers among you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Ortholists have these two states, one where they're like moving around like a normal sentient, and then another one where they like lock in and really like start to do serious damage.
That's cool.
This mode is like much cooler, so I think it'll be a really kind of good use of it to have them arrayed around in that mode, just laying waste to the group guys.
Yes.
So that's going to be my next step. I'm just kind of leaving a to-do list for myself here at the top so that I can see where I'm at. And then the very last thing I want to do, and the part that Pablo will probably be mad at me for, is buffing the ortholists at the end.
Yes. Yes.
Because, I don't know, they shoot so slow, and Caliban's kit applies so much Tau status. And this here it puts status chance vulnerability on the enemies, right? So like they're supposed to take more status effects, but then Caliban doesn't have any inherently like damaging status or other status than Tau. So you need something to cash in on what you're doing with Tau, and I think sticking a forced proc like electricity for all those grouped enemies to arc between each other is going to be fire. So that's what I'm going to start doing. The very first part I'm going to do is just this here, and then I'll walk you through it. To save Rebecca's brazing, I'm going to just copy paste some snippets in here, and then I'll talk about what it is that I do in each snippet.
Save the pork.
Yeah. So
You got time.
let me check out the file quickly. Always important. This kind of makes it so our versioning system understands that I'm making changes.
And this will be on the test chat, so make sure you're paying attention.
Okay, so the very first thing I'm just going to explain is I really haven't changed much. I've just added a couple blocks to activate ability and deactivate ability. What are those functions? So basically every ability in the game has an activate ability function. This runs, you guessed it, when the ability gets activated. So you press the input for the ability, and then the ability runs, and it does all this logic here. So all I've added here is this block that basically just checks for the presence of the augment. So like it does augment 1 if the augment level is greater than 0 and the augment type is augment 1. And then if do augment 1, we create the augment tornado. What this does is it takes your instigator avatar and it attaches a tornado type. Okay, well, I'm going to take a step back and say what the hell is an instigator avatar. Basically, it's you, like your person, the entity that you're piloting around the level. And also, just as a note, avatars are kind of like the physical representation of an individual in space. So like these guys are all avatars. I am an avatar. But that's distinct from suit, because the suit is like what I'm wearing, like my Warframe. So I'm a dude and I'm wearing Caliban right now. I can go in here and I can just change who I'm wearing. So Caliban really is a weapon. He's just like my melee weapon.
This is not canon lore.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am a dude. I am wearing Caliban, wearing a suit.
This is canon for the engine, not for like.
it's code canon.
Yeah.
I am a dude. Wearing a dude.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we create the augment tornado, we attach it, and then we do some configuration here. So basically, I set ourselves as the instigator, the damage instigator for the tornado, so that we don't damage ourselves or our allies. I set the damage to 0 because the script already does damage in other ways, and we just want to use this for CC. And then I set the length and width dimensions of the tornado so that it scales with the radius of the ability. So if it gets bigger, you put more range mods on, the tornado gets bigger. I'm really quickly going to talk about what the hell this augment tornado type is. I've just kind of glazed over it. But yeah, see, this line doesn't really help you either because it just says augment tornado type equals type. Nice. So it actually is really nice. I'm gonna explain why. Because when you put a type like this at the top of a file, our editor picks it up as something that is going to be data-driven. And now what data-driven means is that the script itself doesn't like concretely say you have to use this specific type. You can just click on the ability here in the resource browser and then set any old type you want to do. So in this case, I want to copy exactly what we do for Inaros. So I'm just, oh, that's not cool.
Uh-oh. Is it thinking?
I think it's just transitioning between screens. It kind of got lost. It lost the plot.
It's not.
Oh, it's
So-
only partially.
Yeah, I'm just going to click on it over here.
We believe in you.
Yes.
I'm just typing in storm black hole, which is exactly what we use for Inaros. And you'll see that here because like it's literally in the path. It says /Sandman/storm black hole. Sandman is it's Inaros, obviously.
That's
So-
our pre-naming.
Yeah, our
convention.
pre-naming
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, literally just copying his homework once again. Okay, so that's the create augment portion of it. The destroy augment part is also kind of interesting. So I'll talk about that next. Just like the activate ability, there's a deactivate ability function, which is the sister function that runs when the ability activation ends. So this is like when you press the button, you call activate ability. When he stops spinning, deactivate gets called. Awesome. Here we do the exact same check as above, like 1-to-1, and then if the augment's there, we destroy the tornado. In this one here, we do it just a tiny bit more than destroying the tornado. We grab it, we grab every single avatar that's touching it. So like just explained what an avatar is. So all those guys, we grab them, we run a couple checks, we make sure they're not dead, we make sure they're actually enemies because you don't want to do this to your buddies. We make sure that they're not immune to being pushed or pulled, like don't affect the Eximus units with it, and then we dump them on the floor. So this is basically like the yeet at my feet function. You clear the velocity that they had before because they were spinning and you don't want them to keep spinning, you want them to just be yeeted at the feet. So then you go and calculate that impulse direction. I have given a target position here that's exactly what we use for Inaros, which is just the instigator avatar's current position, so this will go right to your feet. So honestly, we're pretty good to try this out. Hopefully everything just works.
Well, if it doesn't, we know who to blame.
Okay. So yeah, they're kind of getting grouped up when I touch them, and yeah. I kind of don't like it right now though, because it groups them around me and I can't move. I've kind of hard CC'd myself here.
That's so funny.
So I'm gonna make a really, really small adjustment where I just take this target position and I add my instigator avatar forward vector, and then I just multiply that by 4. I'll probably make this value here data-driven, or at the top of the file at least, so that some designer doesn't come knocking on my door saying, hey, how do I make them go farther forward? But for now, this should just work. And you see they get grouped in front of me rather than at my feet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Actually, maybe 5 is a little bit cooler, honestly.
Yeah, 5.
Cinco.
It's a big clump of dudes. All right,
Can you try 50?
Yeah,
want me to do
just
50?
Do
I want to
50.
see something break.
Yeah, just do 50. Let's start.
So can I ship it?
Yes.
No.
Come on.
Okay.
Okay.
It's pretty wicked though.
Yeah, okay, so
think
now
you
we have
threw
the
some of them at
grouping logic
level.
working. So I'm just going to go back up to the little tasks I've laid out for myself here because I have short-term memory loss. And I'm going to just do these next 2 steps in one go. So teleporting the ortholiths around the clump of dudes and then force deploying them. This is just to put them in an ideal position where I know they'll be effective. All right, so I have another snippet in here just for some time saving. All right, let's try this. Let me just talk quickly. I'll pick up where we left off. Destroy augment tornado. This function has barely changed. All I've added is a little variable initially set to false called should teleport summons. The reason it's initially set to false is because we should only ever teleport them if we hit somebody with the yeet at my feet action. If we didn't hit anybody with this, we don't need to teleport our summons because they're probably off doing something else that's far more important and they don't need to be teleported around willy-nilly. So we set it to true the second we hit anybody. And then if it is true, we call this new function called teleport summons. Now, it looks kind of intimidating, but realistically, all I do here is I ask the third ability, Caliban's summon ability, hey, can you give me a list of all the summons, please? Because I need to do stuff to them. So that's what this get summon data function is. It's a really simple thing I've just set up here that asks that ability for that list. Then I set up some values that I'm going to use for like position finding, so like where to teleport the guys. Right here I ask for the AI director because I'm going to do some stuff that I'll explain later, and then I do offset distance. This is kind of like how far from that center clump we want the guys to be, and then I calculate some directional vectors that I'm going to use down below. All right, so then we just make sure we loop through each one of the summons, and we say, okay, so for each one of these guys, make sure they're valid, they still have some duration left on them, and
Another code
that
language
they're actually
that's-
the ortholist because we don't care about anybody else.
What do you have for
Then
ortholiths?
we make the first guy be offset
Needed so
forward,
we
make
don't
his offset
affect the
direction forward vector,
instigator or-
second guy's offset to the left, and then the third guy's offset to -1 times the left, which is just the right. We also print a little error in case we have 4 ortholists because you never know.
What do you mean we have 4 ortholists?
Yeah, so then after that, we just actually do the math for the teleport position and rotation. The rotation here is just to make sure that they're looking at the clump of guys and not the opposite way, because that would be a little awkward. And the very last thing I want to talk about before we teleport them is we try to find a nice spot for them on the nav mesh. Now, the nav mesh is actually just this kind of simplification we have of the level geometry. I don't know if you can see on my screen here, there's like an overlay. This is basically what the AI sees as like the navigable play space for it. So you kind of want whatever position I calculated to find the nearest spot on this space, because if you put them inside a wall or if you put them somewhere that's not on this space, they will have no idea what on earth to do and they'll just be stuck. And we really don't want that. So let's stick them somewhere on the nav mesh that makes sense for them. All right, so that makes sense. Cool. The very last thing I do here is just to kind of save myself some headache later. and I attach some teleport VFX because I know that there's going to be a VFX artist that says, hey, the teleport looks jank as hell. Can you please like just add some effects to make it look nicer? So I'm doing that ahead of time, and just like the tornado type, I'm data driving it at the top of the file. So you can actually see it's been picked up right here. It says augment teleport effects. There's nothing there. I'm going to use summon spawn point, I believe it was called, which is like that beam of light that you see when you first summon the Caliban summons. So like if I just call these guys down, you see that like huge beam of blue light.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to reuse that because that's reusing things is what I like to do. So yeah, let's try this out. I'm actually going to reset the level because the guys are in like weird positions and it's not going to be cool to show. So let's do this. Summon them. Ortholists, go. There they are.
Whoa!
That's cool.
They're so cute.
But like
Oh, that
you
is.
you kind of see what I mean? They're shooting so slow that it's like boring. So I'm going to give them a fire rate buff, and I'm going to give them some electricity status for the culture.
You know what? If people are using the augment slot, they better get that.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
and
what I'm
also,
saying.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there's nothing that the augment card level could scale right now, because all it does is teleport these guys. It doesn't have anything special about it. But if we add buffs, then the augment card can scale the intensity, or like the magnitude of those buffs, as well as the duration for the buffs. So it kind of gives us design levers to pull for balance and fun finding as well. So that's just the very next bit I'm going to do. It's really a tiny modification, so I don't even have to like copy in anything major. I'm just going to go back down to where we teleport the summons right here. So the reason I'm doing it in here is because it happens right at the end, and we're already iterating through all the different summons, and I want to buff those guys. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to paste this. Now this is pretty much like, it's legible almost in plain English as it is. It says, you know, update timed upgrade, so it's giving them a timed upgrade. It's saying that the amount of time that upgrade should last for is 5 seconds. The type is weapon fire rate, and we're multiplying that by 20 because I think that's going to be fun.
No, I'm scared.
And then here we're adding weapon force proc chance, so we're giving it a force proc. We're doing add 1, so this isn't percent, right? So 1 is 100%, so we're adding 100% status chance, and we're doing it for the type PT electrocution, which is proc type electric, you know, the electric status chance. Right, so if I just actually save my file, that would be smart, and then do this here.
Oh my god.
Ship it.
Balanced, perfect. Well, people don't know how to mod for strength because we don't explain modding, so it's not like we're at risk here. Just ship.
Oh, let's go! Totally balanced.
10 out of
I
10.
love it.
Pablo, sorry in advance.
10 out of 10 augment.
Somebody clip totally balanced so I can send that to Pablo. on my
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so we're pretty much there. Like, I know that like it's crazy, and the fire rate will never make it into the game like this. But basically, what I've done here is the fun-finding part of the augment. We prototype it to be like, okay, is there a way we can make this something that players will love, players will enjoy? And I think the answer is a resounding yes. with
Almost
these
done.
adjustments.
I agree. Yeah. that's
So
pretty cool.
I'm
yeah,
probably
I
gonna
think
do some
we're pretty much
doodles.
good to go here. I of course have to make all the adjustments to make scaling work so that you can create strength mods.
So good.
This gets even more insane. Maybe even we make the duration scale with duration.
That's-
Who knows? I'm not going to put words in Pablo's mouth, but yeah, there's a lot of levers we can pull, and I just kind of want to show one last thing before I move on to funnier things. Where did we start? Like, this is the spec that we had. Now groups the enemies you hit. Ortholess summons will launch coordinated strikes on grouped enemies. That's not a very concrete spec, and it's intentionally vague. It's like this so that we don't limit ourselves in what we try to do when we find the fun in an augment like this. And you know, I've been talking about like, oh yes, and then I'll go and do this, I'll go and do that. This process typically happens, it's a very collaborative effort with designers. I'm constantly talking back and forth with both Pablo and any other designer working on the augment to find these problems and kind of overcome them one by one. But yeah, hopefully that was a little bit enjoyable for you guys.
It's very cool.
Way to
That was
go!
awesome.
I
Very cool.
understood 0, but I liked it.
I loved all of it.
Oh my
That was
God.
awesome. And that is Augment. And that is going to be the first debut Caliban Augment.
That's right. Our
Just like
boy-
that.
Our boy
Ship as
finally
is.
gets one.
Ship it as is.
Yeah.
Shall the hijinks continue?
Are we ready to have some fun?
We've been having fun this whole time.
Some unhinged fun.
I said augment slot, but I meant an augment using a slot. You only have so many slots. If you're going to put an augment in one, it better be worth it.
I see.
Absolutely.
All right. Are you ready, Cristiano?
Yeah, I am. What are we getting into first?
First up is we have one of Rebecca's favorite functions of the dev build, which is morphing the faces of Grenier.
This is my favorite
Yeah, of course.
experience.
All right.
This is my favorite.
Oh my God, what is happening?
We don't need to spend too long on it, but it is the best part of the. I actually